The planet is being destroyed all around us. Using money to try to address that problem, it's shooting yourself in the foot. Evolve or perish, grow up or die. An entirely new level of human consciousness is needed right now, or we're all dead. Mankind openly descends into a world of bloodshed without end. Dog eat dog until everything is killed and the last man commits suicide or is poisoned, having all the toys, and they mean nothing. When you believe you're already dead and you got nothing to live for, you fight better than you've ever fought in your life. When your back's to the wall. That's the only time when humans actually choose to evolve, at the moment of death. At the moment when we face our destruction. That's when the greatest leaps in human consciousness and the leaps of human heart take place. I'm tired. I'm ready to die. Great, bring it on. I'm not afraid of death at all. That'll be a big relief for me. That'll be graduation. God, I get out of this godforsaken shithole that I love more than anything else in the world. The Scout's knife is sharp on both edges. It cuts in both directions. When I said that the ultimate crime and everything that's wrong with this world comes from whoever wrote into Genesis that mankind should have dominion over this planet and go forth and multiply and subdue the fowls. That's the crime of separating human consciousness from the consciousness of all the other things that we need. Whether it's the water that we drink, the air that we breathe, the animals that we eat. We live in a monetary paradigm that demands infinite growth, so balance is not possible. There are 7.1 billion people on the world today. There were only 1 billion people on the world when man discovered oil. And all 6.1 billion exponential growth like that. And I've done this, everybody knows this gesture on my part. Human population went like this. And all populations, once they hit that unfettered growth, they all have a collapse. They all dive and die off. So many people are so fucking in love with technology, and they're idiots. Techno fixes don't work. Let me give you some examples. In 1900, New York City, Washington, D.C., Chicago, St. Louis, San Francisco were all awash in horse shit. There were only 90 million people in the United States then. Those cities were just buried in horse shit, and they needed a technological fix for that. The technological fix for the horse was the automobile, which relied on fossil fuel. Well, what did that bring us? That brought us more infinite growth, brought us traffic jams, brought us horrendous smog. I grew up all over the country, but I remember LA in the 1960s. You could not breathe. It was so painful due to the smog. It hurt to breathe. So then we went to catalytic converters. But then it's been known about peak oil that the world was going to start running out of oil, crossing a bell curve, since the late 1940s when the prophet, when the guy who discovered it, a physicist, M. King Hubbert, predicted it. He was the granddaddy. So the techno fix for peak oil was tar sands. Well, what are tar sands doing? You've destroyed hundreds of million acres of boreal forest, the lungs of the planet in Canada. You burn copious amounts of natural gas, which we ran out of to boil water to wash tar sands. Look at the net energy input for that. You're burning natural gas, and oil or coal, whatever, to boil this water to wash the tar sand. You wash out this super sticky, poisonous substance called bitumen out, which is not oil. And then that has to be refined, and you destroy this most pristine boreal forest. It's killing the wildlife, it's infected the water table, it passes through pipelines, the pipelines break and it destroys the ecosystems wherever it's exposed. So North America passed a natural gas cliff in 2002, 2003, conventional natural gas. You just drill a well and, burn it off. So the techno fix for running out of natural gas was fracking. Oh, great, now you can set your water faucet on fire. You can poison yourself, give yourself cancer. You can send the poisons downstream and kill fish and destroy trees. That's the techno fix. So people who are looking to techno fixes for these problems are suicidal, and they're deluded, and they're stupid. Holes are drilled deep into Mother Earth until it reaches a shale formation. It's hard rock. And what I found, due to a patent that was issued to Halliburton, Dick Cheney, they're shooting depleted uranium into Mother Earth to fracture the shale, to liberate the gas. And they are pouring horrendously toxic chemicals, benzene, many other chemicals down there to extract this natural gas. Fracking also has been shown to cause earthquakes in Arkansas and Missouri, and it deeply disturbs Mother Earth. It's a desperate drive for energy, which shows that all of the leaders of the industrialized world who talk about growth and who are serving the IMF, the World Bank, the US dollar hegemony, an infinite growth monetary paradigm, which is a pyramid scheme, have absolutely no concern, a complete psychotic. And the United States empire is crumbling as we speak. Now, what's clear is, because the US has been the hegemonic alpha dog for so long, is that the world doesn't have a plan B for what happens if the United States fails. But the United States of America needs to fail. The US dollar needs to fail. There is no hope for any of us unless that oppression, that straitjacket, that iron mask in which we are forced to live is removed. And we have to see that. The US dollar is like one of the major legs that must be broken down to change that consciousness about money. It's like Chief Seattle said, not until you have killed the last fish and cut down the last tree and poisoned the last river will you discover that you cannot eat money. So now the dollar is collapsing. The US empire is in retreat. The world doesn't quite know what to do, and this was discussed clearly when I went to Moscow in 2001 with the Ministry of Finance. Consciousness has not evolved to the point where people realize that money is nothing. It's not money is the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. The belief that it's power. Here's the cruelest joke. And I can hear George Orwell and Terence McKenna laughing their asses off. What does it say on here? In God we trust. This is God. This is the God that's dying. This is the fucking God that means nothing. It's not clean air. It's not fresh water. In the world that we live in right fucking now, the hypnosis is going to break because everybody's going to realize almost in a heartbeat what matters is, do you have food to eat? Do you have unpolluted water that you can drink? Do you have air that you can breathe? Are you able to maintain your body temperature at night? And at that point, the switches go on, and mankind is faced one of two choices. That's it. When the dollar goes, it's going to be a very, very short period of time before it comes to that real fork in the road. What I'm aware of, people who had been unapproachable before, people whose consciousness was like the people living in the Matrix where you were Neo out of the Matrix, okay? It's hard to deal with, but I see people in the Matrix starting to crack. And that's satisfying. I've been waiting 35 fucking years to see these cracks appear. Where I am with the prioritized threats facing humanity right now, there are only two. One is climate collapse, the collapse of the jet stream, global warming, in which we know of an absolute scientific certainty that we have baked a 4 degrees centigrade rise above baseline, baseline being the start of human industrial civilization, carbon emission. And human life goes extinct after 2 degrees centigrade. It takes a longer period of time. 4 degrees, and now looks more like 5, with 25 positively reinforcing feedback loops, such as the melting of methane hydrates in the seabeds, or the thawing of Arctic tundra in Siberia that produces columns of methane, a greenhouse gas 100 times more dangerous than carbon dioxide in its initial release than CO2. The North Pole is now warmer than it has been in 140,000 years. This is an irreversible trend. Plants cannot adapt that quickly to a changing climate. And what people who are disconnected from the earth don't understand is if the animals die and if the plants die, we die. There are too many people who have been hypnotized into believing their food actually comes from a grocery store. It doesn't come from a grocery store. It comes from Mother Earth.
Don't ever use conspiracy theory that's so insulting. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's real, it's science, it's documented. I'm not going to come from the defensive standpoint on this. There are more people in this country who are aware of the dangers of fucking GMOs than who are ignorant. And I'm not going to come from the standpoint of talking to the people who are ignorant. I just don't do it. GMOs are poison. Genetically modified organisms intended to make a profit. Once the genome, the DNA, could be modified, the corporations said, well, if you modify it, then you can get a patent on it and you can own it. And everything that uses that patent, you get profit for. That's life. That's life. You can't patent life. You're not patentable, nor am I. But the way GMO laws work essentially is to argue that if you and I ingest GMO corn, or most people are eating a whole lot more GMO than they realize, that could modify your cells and you then could become the profit of the corporation, the property of the corporation, under that logic. I'm serious, man. I am so serious. There are billions of people in the world, man, who are out of the paradigm. They're out of the matrix. They've taken the red pill and they don't jump back in to argue with the matrix. So that's for the testiness of my response. There's a lot of awake people out here. We ain't buying this bullshit anymore. Why do we have to? It's obvious why GMOs are dangerous, just as obvious why it is that fracking is dangerous. And for people who can't see that, we're not apologetic to you. We just kind of feel sorry for you. Monsanto is getting its ass kicked around the world. Romania, Mexico has just banned all GMO corn. I mean, this is happening boom, 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 boom around the world the same way it's happening with fracking. And I'm on that side, you know. If nobody should ever ask me to have to explain why it's necessary to defend my life. We all come from great Creator and Mother Earth. And these wonderful cousins, they offer their lives for us. And we're grateful to them for it. And we thank them for what they give us. And in return, we have an obligation to make sure that the herds prosper and that they live and that they're healthy and they have good lives. And these yaks have pretty good lives.
Yeah, happy yak.
Happy yak. Commercial meat is the most disrespectful way to treat an animal. Not only are they raised and slaughtered in inhumane conditions, they're fed all kinds of drugs, they're fed toxins that pass on to the human body. They're not organic meaning chemical free. What's important to preserve is the clear relationship with nature that's unfettered by man-made interference. You know, it's man's improvements, it's man techno-fixes that have created all the problems we're facing in the world right now. Oh, they'll just come up with some new fix for this and all they do is make stuff worse. But this is the way human beings lived for thousands and thousands of years.
before the industrial age came along with a very close symbiotic relationship. Now with the buffalo and the Native American, that was sacred, especially for the Plains Indians. But it's the same with all things. I look at these yak as my cousins, my relatives, as is everything alive on this planet. We all come from the same place. We all come from Mother Earth. Every molecule and every animal, every plant, all comes from only one place.
The second threat, which is more imminent, is Fukushima. It is an unprecedented nuclear disaster. March 11th of 2011, there was a Richter 9 earthquake off the coast of Fukushima, eastern Japan. The massive earthquake caused major damage to the reactor buildings, but they survived to one degree or another intact. So when the tsunami arrived after the earthquake, it was a big tsunami, like 40 feet, that went many, many miles inland, killed many tens of thousands of people, 10, 15,000 people, 20,000 people.
Here it comes!
What the tsunami did was overwhelm the diesel generators that had been installed in a very low-lying spot close to the beach and drowned them. So there was no electrical power supply to pump water, which made it inevitable that you were going to have meltdowns. There was some heroic action on the part of TEPCO staff, who eventually decided to flood the reactors with seawater, which is very corrosive. It's not a good thing to do. You've destroyed the reactors. But what they did was they saved 3 small atom bomb explosions. They prevented that for a short period of time. But then you had, inevitably, without power, meltdowns. And the cores of nuclear reactors become super hot. They melted through their containment vessels, out of the buildings, out of the structures, and melted into the earth. Some of them, because they were in pressurized tight spaces, water will decompose into break down into its constituent elements, hydrogen and oxygen, hydrogen being extremely explosive. So you had a hydrogen explosion at Building 3, which just blew the top off. I think everybody has seen the film of that. You also had explosions at 1 and 2. What happened as a result of that, you had catastrophic releases of radiation into the upper atmosphere immediately, within days of the earthquake and tsunami. And what we are finding out now, and it's been covered up by the Japanese government, covered up by TEPCO, covered up by the United States government. It's been hidden. We have been bathed in radiation. The Northern Hemisphere has. It's traveled the globe. It's been detected in heavily along the West Coast, where infant mortality soared in April and May, birth defects soared, leukemias have soared. We now know that the West Coast is being bathed in radiation, not only from the atmospheric release, but now from what we've learned in the last few months, from the fact that TEPCO has been dumping 300-400 tons of super radioactive water into the ocean every day for 2.5 years. And those leaks are getting worse, and the amounts of radiation being leaked are getting worse because the site itself is deteriorating, it's degenerating. And Building 4 is teetering. It's absolutely rickety. There are 6 spent fuel pools at Fukushima. The one that's suspended in this teetering, rickety building above what was reactor number 4, contains the radiation equivalent of 15,000 Hiroshima bombs. If those fuel rods have an open air combustion, and they are very long and very heavy, like cigarettes in a pack, and the way they used to be removed was they would have a computer operating a crane to remove them very slowly so that they didn't contact, especially in open air. That's when you get the disaster. The cranes have been destroyed. The building is teetering. The computers that were there to run the cranes to make sure that you didn't get a contact have been destroyed. They're going to have to be removed by hand within a couple of months because everybody knows the building's going to fall over. This is almost an impossible task, and I'm seeing some tacit admissions. We don't know how to do this. But now everybody knows, it's out, that the ground underneath the reactors is turning into mud. They've been pouring hundreds and thousands and millions of tons of water just in there trying to keep everything cool so that you didn't have another critical event, but it's eroding the foundations and the land from underneath the building. And that water's been pumping directly into the Pacific Ocean for 2.5 years. The plankton eat it. And then something eats the krill, eat the plankton. Then something comes along and eats the krill, the small fish, the bigger fish. So by the time you get to a bluefin tuna eating what it eats, the radiation has been concentrated through 4 or 5 meals. And 100% of the bluefin tuna that have been caught recently off the coast of California have tested positive for radiation. Starfish are dissolving. Mackerel are showing up with bleeding eye sockets and ulcerations. Sockeye salmon are turning up with radiation. Killer whales off the coast of Vancouver are losing their ability to vocalize. They're dying at an alarming rate. The Pacific Ocean has been lethally poisoned, the northern Pacific, but eventually the oceans will circulate it everywhere. But Tokyo Electric Power, the Japanese government has lost control. The radiation now, currently, even without the fuel pool falling over, is so intense near buildings 1, 2, and 3, reactors 1, 2, and 3, that it disables robots. And it's been admitted that nobody has the technology to build a robot capable of withstanding those amounts of radiation to get close to it to do anything. Radiation also turns metal extremely brittle. They've had a crane failure there. There are 2 cooling towers that have already broken loose for moorings big enough that they could fall on building 3 or building 4 at any time. And we expect that with typhoons or another earthquake. So that radiation is already so intense that you really can't work on what's there. You can't contain it. We don't know where the cores are. The cores could be hundreds of miles down below now. They've passed water tables. Nobody knows where they are. If building 4 falls, the whole site must be abandoned. There's no debate about this. Nobody disputes it under any circumstances, not the Japanese government, not TEPCO. If those rods go, then every other set of fuel rods has to be abandoned and they cannot be kept cooled and they will go. The combined radiation from all that will be released if building 4 goes is 85 times the amount of cesium alone that was released from Chernobyl. Now you have 1 million deaths already from Chernobyl. This is a human extinction event. We are all dead if this happens. It is a human apocalypse, not just to humans, but to all life on the planet. Fukushima is not a Japanese problem. It is not North America. It's a human problem. Every human being, every living thing on the planet is at risk.
Hands of robbery. Have we eyes to see?
The means to save, to resurrect, to make amends with, to reconcile with, to heal ourselves with Mother Earth and everything that lives here will only become available to us once we realize that cooperation rather than competition, that love rather than fear is the only state of consciousness in which we can successfully live. And lo and behold, those are the ways our ancestors lived 40,000 years ago. Those are the ways the Lakota lived on the plain, the way the Apache lived in the desert, the way they lived in South America, the way the indigenous people, they lived in a state of love and balance for everything. But we are drunken humans on this mad, addictive desire for another line of cocaine, another dose of cheap energy, another car, another joke, what? Look at where it has brought us. Now that all of human race stands at the brink of extinction, and we may die, life will go on, spirit's going to be fine, we're just going to go some other place. I don't believe death is an end, it's a door. You go through it. You know, Crazy Horse, the great mystic, said the spirit world's more real than this one. He wanted to spend more time there than here, because this place gets to be real hard sometimes. But we stand at this most amazing moment, the end of the fourth sun. There is an answer. Now, 7 billion souls aren't going to make that, I don't think. It would be nice. It might happen. I don't know what miracles lie out there. But one thing that people on this planet it's really starting to sink in is what we've been doing is not working. What the whole human race has been doing. Until you change the way money works, you change nothing. You have to stop infinite growth. We can't feed any more people, we can't fit any more people on the planet. Human population is still growing exponentially, although the die-off is pretty significant now, and it's going to get a lot more pronounced. But beyond all of that, now Fukushima and climate collapse have brought us to a place where we face the end of our species within 17 years. At the outside, 2030, 2040. The only way, if we want to live and if we want children to live after us, is to stop human industrial activity right now. Otherwise, we're an alcoholic, cocaine addict, heroin addict, sitting at a bar stool weighing 80 pounds, anemic, trying to convince ourselves that we look good with AIDS and herpes and all these damn diseases. We're slamming booze down our throat, we're sticking a needle in our arm, we're snorting the line, and we're committing suicide saying everything's under control. It ain't. So we are reaching a climax, and some people would say, and I don't believe this at all, some people would say that Mother Earth is going to kill us like we're an infection. I believe, and it's my experience even now, that Mother Earth, because we are of her, we are her children. We are created from her. What mother cannot love her child still loves us unconditionally and is begging for us to wake up. I don't know that it does make a difference, and this is where I've come to just in the last 2 or 3 weeks, looking at climate collapse in Fukushima, which is that I think we're all dead. But I'm utterly convinced that the state of mind we are in when we die will make all the difference in the universe as to where we find ourselves once we've walked through the door. You know, I firmly believe that the level of consciousness and love that we carry and we create, and the people that we surround ourselves with, what we hold in our hearts at the moment of our death makes all the difference in the world. There are people who would lay down and die. Well, that's not a warrior's path. You know, just give up, just get loaded, just get stoned, just party. Well, that doesn't, you get tired of that real quick if you try it. But it's what's in your heart, it's what you're doing, it's the warrior's way. You fight until the last minute. One way or another, no matter what happens, there is a balancing that's coming. There is a balancing that is here, that it is now. And what's left for us is to decide how we're going to face it and what's important. But between climate chaos and Fukushima, there shouldn't be anything else that anybody anywhere on the planet is concerned about. Because unless those are dealt with, we're all dead anyway.
that